Welcome back to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. Today's episode is Blocks and Barrier Files, Values and Priorities.
I find the beauty in commotion, swimming by the gale, miles away.
Welcome back to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. Today's amazing topic is values and priorities. In today's fast-paced world, we have such a hard time really understanding values and priorities and how they affect our lives. So we thought it would be really cool to kind of get into that and kind of explain things and see what we can go from there. Right, Sarah?
Absolutely.
When we're looking for a life that's fulfilling to us, knowing the difference and between values and priorities is extremely crucial. By aligning them, your actions with what truly matters to you. So if you're not acting within your priorities and your values, then you're not going to feel fulfilled and you're not going to be happy. Would you agree with that, Miss Sarah?
Absolutely. And it's interesting for me when I go through a period of my life where I'm like, I am really not happy right now. Why am I so unhappy? And I can remember this happened for me in like 2012. I was the store manager of Carter's Children's Wear. And so I worked 40 hours a week. I had a nanny that came to my house. I had 5 kids. AJ was less than 2 years old. And there were some days where I actually almost wouldn't see them because if I worked shift one night, so 2 to 10 one night, and the next morning I opened, so that meant I had to be at work by 8. Sometimes I like I said, I wouldn't even get to see them. And it hit me like a ton of bricks when I went through and actually tracked the hours that I was spending with my kids and my family. Because if you asked me, I would have said my family's my number one priority. And then when I realized that that was not reflected in how I spent my time, that was when I really started digging into and looking to how can I make a shift so that I'm spending time with my family, because I felt like a big hypocrite saying that my family is my priority and yet I didn't get to spend time with them.
Well, and that's that it's very hard because we get caught up in life and we get caught up in everything that sometimes those things we kind of go away from them a little bit. And when that starts happening is when you start feeling that unsettled, that unhappy, that frustrated feeling. And sometimes you can't figure out what it is, but if you go back to your values and your priorities, you'll figure out you're just not living within them. And so,
Right.
that'll make the difference right there. So
And I think it's interesting too when other people have different values or priorities than you do. It's interesting how they use their time and they use their resources. And for a long time for me, I looked at it from a place of judgment because I had kids from such a young age, so I didn't understand how to restructure things any other way. So then when I would see someone like my sister who would take an amazing trip or whatever, I spoke very negatively about that because oh my gosh, how could you prioritize traveling? How can you prioritize taking care of yourself when this over here needs to get done? And so it took a lot of understanding and hard work. And I actually went through a couple of fairly expensive, long personal development courses. And when I say long, I mean like weeks long, change my perspective to start to create that space within myself that other people value different things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them worse. It doesn't make me better. It took a long time for me to kind of unravel the right from wrong when it came to people's values.
No, and we all do. Like you and I have one that's very we're very similar. We're like basically the same, and that's family. Family to you and me both is extremely
Yeah.
important, and having children. One reason I chose the career I did was even though I wasn't sure I could have children, I wanted to be able to make sure that I was not at a 9 to 5 or whatever job when I had them, if I ever had them. And so therefore, like that
Yep.
was something when I was 18, I knew that's something that's a strong pull inside of me is to be there for my family, have dinner every night with my husband and my daughter, have time with them, and not be sitting there coming home just as frustrated as I was at work because of all this stuff that happens in the office and all the extra work I didn't get done and all that stuff. But not everyone values that. My brother and my sister-in-law don't have children. My sister-in-law is a doctor, and my brother is an attorney, and their priorities and their values are much different than mine. Raised in the same family, my brother and I, but he just, I think he did want to have children, but she did not. So he decided that what she wanted was more important. And I don't understand it. I completely don't understand it, but that doesn't make him wrong.
Right.
That just makes it different. And
Right.
you just acknowledge the difference and, move past it and understand that everyone's going to be a little different in their lives.
How old were you, do you think? You were just saying like you knew when you're like 18 years old that you wanted a career that gave you flexibility to have a family. So how old were you, do you think, when you were able to articulate, this is what I value, this is what I prioritize? Because I
I
wouldn't have even thought that way at 18.
I don't think that I ever actually thought of it as a value or a priority. I just
Right.
knew deep down inside of me that that family was so important to me, and that being able to give my children what my family gave me, which was a lot of love, a lot of support. My mom stayed home with us until we were all in school for full time, and then she went
Mm-hmm.
back to work, but she went back with the understanding that if we were sick, if we had a game, if we had anything, that she would not be there. And to me, that was what my center was. That was what who I wanted to be. I wanted to be able to be there for any children I had, from my family, even if it was just my husband and me, because I wasn't sure I could have kids. I wanted to be able to be there
Right.
and be available for whatever they needed. And so I had to choose.
Right.
At first, I did go to school for criminal justice, and I did go to school to become a cop and all that stuff. And then that's when I kind of changed. And I said, no, I don't want this. And there was a few different reasons, but one thing that was a constant pull was, what about family? And the one thing I got from all my teachers in college was that, they were all men, and they were all cops, and they were all, they all did the criminal justice aspect of life. But if you ask them about their family, they could tell you they had 3 kids or 2 kids, and their ages and their names and stuff, but they didn't really know them. And to me, that's not what I wanted out of life. So that was a big part of why I changed after I graduated. I went into massage therapy school and went therapies because I wanted something that I had control over, how much time I spent with my family.
That's actually why I went into working from home. I was kind of thinking when we were talking, I'm like, okay, so I just asked her, when did hers show up for her? When did I get clear on my values and priorities? And I can remember joining one of my first MLMs. I was actually terminated from my store manager position for being a minute late for my lunch. And I tried to laugh about it, but I remember being very, very devastated. And then realizing, once I took the cost of paying a nanny out of my budget, that I did not need to make near the amount of money that I thought I did. And then I started looking into ways from working from home. And that's when it got really clear to me that I would rather, live in a budget than I would miss my kids all the time. And that's something that just came up for me. I was just employed for about 18 months with an eye doctor. When my kid got diagnosed type 1 diabetes, my number one priority became, we need to figure out health insurance, need to figure out health insurance. And so that was easily my number one priority. As much as I love my job, as much as I like having that flexible income, my number one priority was making sure my kid was taken care of. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. It was hey, I came to you and I had a conversation about insurance, and nothing has changed. We still are being denied, and I still do not make enough to go and afford my own. So I'm hoping we can create something different. And again, they never addressed that issue. They came up with other things to address. And so I don't know. I think a lot of our actions and our decisions are motivated by our priorities and our values. And I don't know, I just feel like life gets a lot easier and less muddy when you know what those are. Me at 42, I feel like life is so much simpler and clearer at now than in my 20s when I was 29 and I had my 5th child. Everything is so much clearer now.
Well, with age comes knowledge, right? To some
For
people.
some people, I heard, I don't know.
I was going to say age comes maturity, but that's not necessarily true either. So, okay. So, one of the things I wanted to do to go into the educational aspect of our podcast was define each of them. So, defining values and priorities. So, values are your core beliefs, your guiding principles, and what truly matters to you. They are often deeply ingrained and shape our world view. So basically, when I said that I just knew from childhood, from young life, that family was so very important to me, that's a core value for me. That's not a priority. I mean, it becomes a priority, but it's something that is ingrained in me. It's something that I just know. And so therefore, like with Sarah, that the last few it's a while, but especially the last few weeks have been really stressful for me because as a mama bear, I am very much on top of what's going on with my daughter. And so therefore at 7, having the problems she's having, I was in like, it felt to me like the fight of my daughter's life with IEP because with the county, because of her problems, I want to set her up for the most success possible. And I just was overly like completely stressed out because I didn't feel like I was being heard on. And they're like, well, this is, I'm like, yeah, but I'm the mom. I understand my daughter better than any of you. And I got so frustrated over it because that's something that's ingrained in me to be that mama bear, to completely protect and
Right,
set my daughter up for success. And
right,
then there's
right,
priorities. Priorities are specific goals or tasks that we focus on at a particular time. They're based on our values, or they should be based on our values, but can change depending on circumstances. So when we're talking about values and priorities, values are what are going to create our priorities, but the priorities are what changes based on the situation. But the problem is people set up priorities that are not based on their core values. And that's where we end up having that unfulfilled and that unhappy and that mad and that angry, feeling lost and feeling like they're just going around in circles because they're not basing their priorities on their values.
You
What
know,
do you
something that just kind of came up with me while you're talking about the difference between priorities and values. So priorities are like the tasks that you do. So one thing I know that I value is education and continued education and learning. And in my past job, it was a requirement to get certain certifications. And I got the first one 6 months before I was required to. She had me enrolled in one class and then she enrolled me in a second class before the first one was even complete. And as I'm remembering this and talking about it now, I'm like, no wonder I burned out and got so frustrated because even though I value education and continuing education and growing my career, even though I valued that, I value more my family and their well-being. And so while I was doing all these tasks, spending all this time in my education, I was not getting a chance to spend time doing tasks to strengthen my family. And I'm realizing now, like, if I had done that, I would not gotten into that crisis situation with the health insurance. But I didn't know at the time that I was using my time incorrectly because my career was important to me. I value education. I value getting better at my job and understanding it. I dealt with almost 6 months of feeling very frustrated in the job because I don't understand what they're talking about and no one here will explain it to me. And so this is a great conversation and I appreciate it for myself personally to go back and realize that's why that sucked.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like we get set on a path and we don't always go back and look at those values and priorities and really make sure that we're following them. We get set on a path and we're on that path. We have that tunnel vision. This is what I'm going to do. We feel that unhappy, we feel that unfulfilled, we feel all of that frustration, but we're like, oh, that's just because I'm stressing myself out because of this, or I'm stressing, but that might not be it. And that is a time to really look at your values and your priorities and make sure you're living them. Because if you're not living them, your happiness and your fulfillment are not going to be there. You're not going to have that sense of purpose or satisfaction in life and in your family. your relationships. It affects everything.
Yeah.
So we were
So
talking
how do
about
you figure out what your own, go ahead.
I was looking at my notes, and I was like, man, we already talked about the second part, which is why understanding your values and priorities are important. We've already talked about that. So what were you going to ask?
I was going to say, so how does someone get clear on their core beliefs, their core values, and their priorities when, like I said, I thought I was living into it. I really did think I was living into it, but obviously I wasn't. So how would we help someone get clear on those?
Well, there's a few different things you can do. So there's these are a lot of these are self-reflection. So these are things that you're going to just sit quietly by yourself and really figure out what is important to you. I would say the number one most important thing to do is to figure out your values first, because your priorities will come based on your values. So spend time reflecting on your life experience, what brings you joy and what stands out for you. So looking back at all my life experiences, the things that brought me the most joy, the things that stand out for me, were my family trip to England, were my family trips to the New Jersey Shore, my family trips to Long Lake, New York, my family trips. What does that tell you? Those are the things I remember. I remember my
Right.
grandmother and grandfather, that, the Christmas mornings, and my grandfather sitting there. He's a 6 foot some Irishman, and he would sit there and he would act so surprised with every single thing that we opened, and just that time spending with him and time spending with my grandmother. I remember every ounce of, like, with my grandfather. My mom doesn't understand it because I was only, what, 5 when he passed away. And I
Yeah.
remember my grandfather to the point where I can remember the smell of his cigars and his
Yeah.
pipes, even more than the
Yeah.
cigars, the pipes. I remember that. So that tells you right there that by just doing that's not even a self-reflection. That's just knowing that
Yeah.
family's always been there for me. That's always been something important
Right.
to me. So self-reflection, really spend time reflecting on your experiences. What stands out? What made you the happiest you've ever been in your life? And journal about it, meditate about
Right.
it. And then for a clarification, explore different values and how they resonate with you. You can look up online, you can look up all the different values out there, right? And you can literally sit there and look at one and say, and how does that feel to you? Does that feel important, or does that feel kind of like, not really so important? Is money the most important thing in your life? Is creating not only just financial. There's a difference between creating where you're feeling secure financially, like you're feeling like you're not living paycheck to paycheck and stuff. That's one thing. That's also a security issue. Like if you're not
Yeah.
if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't feel secure in your life. So that goes back to
Right.
that. But if gaining all this money so that you can travel all the time, and you can do, and you don't have any care in the world, if that's really important to you, that's you're gonna live your life based on that. And how are you gonna get there?
Right.
Where, like, for me, mine is security, family and security. So it's not necessarily about becoming a multi-billionaire. It's about knowing that if my daughter wants to go to this college, I can do it. If I want to stay at home, something happens and I want to stay at home, not without, with only going shopping and stuff, I can do that without a problem. And that's
Yeah.
security to me. It's not if my parents, if my parents are in New York, and if I need to be able to go up there, I need to still be able to pay my bills. So I need to be able to have something. I need to be able to have that. That's security to me. That's not money. That's security. There's a
Right.
difference. And so one of the best things to do is to look online, find it. They give you lists of all the values out there, any value you can think of, right? You can get a list of
We'll
it.
include a link to a document below that will be a list for them to just click on our link and go check out the list of values to go through. So we'll make it easier for them to find.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I've looked it up like numerous times. So
Right.
then look at each one of them and figure out what's like more important to you. And then really figure out, at that point, what your values are, now you come up with your priorities based on your values.
Yep.
How do you get to this place? What are the tasks you need to do in order to get there? And how urgent is each value and each priority?
You know, and I also really want to just take a moment to encourage people to reach out and book a session with Megan, because I can remember doing this session with you. I can remember where I was. I can remember how I felt. I can remember writing them down. I can remember you talking to me to try to find more. And we got done. And you're like, you didn't write down your most important one. There were no amount of questions that I could ask you to get you to remember or to connect with your most important priority. And then she said the word to me. I'm like, oh, well, it's because I have it right now, so I don't feel like I want to go get it. And that was new for me. I had never experienced that before. And you were like, your number one is not even on this list. Every other time I've talked to you, your number. And so that was a really great exercise for me, because kind of what I realized is like, when all of our needs are met and when we're living into our purpose, when, you know, I felt very much less distracted by attempting to create what I needed. I got to just be, because what I needed existed. And I think that's why it's so important to take the time. And as Megan was saying, it's self-reflection. It's sitting with yourself. It's making sure you have the time. It's finding quiet time. You know, even if you have to do it a couple of different sessions, to get clear on what's important to you so that you get to live that aligned life. Because if we skip this step and try to just be like, oh, I'm going to go on and not even figure this part out, you will trip and fall and end up back here over and over again.
Right.
I've done that.
Yeah, you know, and you know, we all lose track. I mean, the one definite in my life has always been family, but we all lose track of the other. There's always going to be one that it's like you're guiding. Like for me, family, like that's the most important, right? I never lose track of that one. But my
Right.
priorities don't always, because of business, because of the different things I do in my life, I sometimes it's still there, but my priorities are changing based on what needs to be done at that moment and to create the security, to create this. So sometimes we're conflicting. We have conflicting values because my family is the most important, but how do I make my family the most secure? Because that's the next most important to me. So sometimes,
Yep.
like, I have to work more in order to make my family more secure, which takes away from my family. But like, how do you got to find that happy medium that allows you to work both or work each
Yep.
one, and they might change based, you know, each day it might change based on what's going on in life. Your priorities, your values should never change.
Right. See, and I think that's really important to remember too, is that, you know, our values, you're right, because they don't ever change, but how we prioritize our time changes depending on which one of those values needs work. I'm imagining a little bar graph, a little like video game life thing, you know? So like if your health is down, but your funds are up, it's time to spend some time on your health so your health can get back up, you know? And it's the same with all these other things too. And it's kind of a juggling act, and it's an awareness thing. And like, I just want to applaud you for a minute, because I know that being healthy and your physical fitness is a priority to you. And at the same time, as you were just saying, it's not your top priority, and it's not even your second priority. And so to see you this week, the first week that Breezy's back in school, be like, okay, so now they've got her. So now you can have this peace and security. And now you're allowing other values, other of your beliefs to bubble up and find time in your schedule, because you know, school is free childcare. So now you have a couple hours free in the afternoon or in the morning, you're finding time. And so I really want to applaud you and shout you out, because that's what it takes.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it does. You have to look at, for the summer, Brianna's my number one priority. So for the summer, my business and Brianna. And cool thing is, my business allows me that flexibility. But now
Yep.
she's back in school. So now from 8 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon, business and what can I put with it? Well, and like I was saying on our text messaging earlier, I feel so weak. I went to the gym 2 days in a row and I'm in pain and I realize I can't lift the way I used to. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man. So, now that's a major priority. I need to get my strength back. I have a quarter of the strength I used to have, which means that's how out of
Right.
shape I am. So that's big for me now, because I know my massage clients would disagree with my strength, but it really is, it's a huge difference in my abilities. And so I really do want to get back into, fighting form, ha ha ha, as far as my ability to be physically fit. And now she's in school and I think she's going to be doing, hopefully with the medicine and everything, she'll be doing so much better. I don't have to stress. I can work on myself
Yeah.
instead.
Awesome. So I love that you say that you're working out to get back to fighting form. And one of the reasons that I'm interested in regaining strength and losing some of the extra pounds that I have picked up. It's so funny. I see it right in my face, but it's for me, it doesn't have anything to do with being more attractive to my husband or being more attractive in society. Or for me, it's none of those things. But like, dude, I want to go snowboarding, and I know how physically hard it is to walk up a hill with your snowboarding boots on, carrying that board. Because the last time we tried to do it was right after we got married in 2018. Octavia was about to turn 2 years old, and I almost couldn't do it. I remember being like in tears because it was so hard. And Adam was carrying my board. And he's like, "Do you need to take a break?" And so, like, for me, when it comes to like working out and physical fitness, and I think this really goes back to, values, is I don't value being physically attractive to other people. I value being strong and feeling good in my body. And so I saved a meme to my phone and I should share it today. And it's an animation, but she's got writing on her body, and it says, "Oh, I'm gonna cry. Work out because you love your body, not because you hate your body." And that's so important. And that's like, if you go to the gym because you believe you're disgusting, your workout and the energy you're going to have when you're in a workout is so different than, "I'm so excited to get here and get stronger." And I think that's why it's so important to me. Like, when I work with clients, the very first thing I want to do with them is talk to them about their beliefs and talk to them about their values, because they might not even be aware of what they are, but we hear them when we talk to them. We will hear them. And that's why I think it's important to focus on, what are they and what do you want them to be? What are the steps to create that transformation?
Yeah, and that's going to go into our goals. We're going to have a whole episode, guys, on goals, because Miss Sarah is awesome with that. And I have the priorities part and all that stuff, but she's really good at helping you set goals. So we're going to have a whole conversation about that. But no, and then that's the thing. As I've told you before, I used to kickbox and I also did martial arts. And so for me, fighting form, it's not, no, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, yes, it's nice to know that my husband's attracted to me, but honestly, he's attracted to me the way I am now. So why, it doesn't make a difference. What everyone
Right.
else in the world thinks, I don't care. As long as him and I are with each other and we got each other's back, I don't care what the world thinks. What I care about
Yeah.
is I'm in fighting form for me, because for me, fighting form was when I was really fit, was when I was really active and I wasn't exhausted all the time. And so for me, fighting form is I'm able to go through my day without going, "Oh my God, can I just take a nap? Oh my God, I just
Yeah.
want to, I don't want to cook dinner tonight
Right.
because I just don't feel like it." Like, that's, to me, is not fighting form. Fighting form is I'm going through my
Right.
day. When I go to bed, I go to bed. But it's until
Yeah. Because
then, I'm
yeah. So when was the last time you were in what you consider fighting form?
oh God, I don't even want to think about that right now. It's been a while. I go up and down
Well, I
and
know mine.
weight, but the actual physical fit has been a while. Like, this physically fit that I want to get to has been a very long time. My weight has been up and down and everything, but that actual physical fitness has been a long time.
Yeah. Mine is June 2015. I was actually teaching classes at a gym, felt very strong. I have pictures of myself like in a two-piece bikini, and this was after 5 kids. And we don't like to blame Octavia, We will blame the fact that she was my sixth pregnancy and I was 33 and I was anemic the whole time. But I went from 139 pounds to 214 pounds when I had her. And so in that 9 month period, I really packed it on. And again, for me, it's not so much about weight, but I was sleeping almost, I was sleeping like 16 hours a day because I was so anemic. And to try to come out of that, I went through periods where I worked out, I was meticulous at the gym after I had her. And so like leading into when I got married in 2018, I had went from 214 to 185. That was the lowest I could get myself. And I felt better. And that's how I was able to go snowboarding then, right around when we got married in 2018. But like I was saying, he had to carry my board for me. I was exhausted. I was in a lot of pain. And we all know what happened after 2018-19. We had COVID and gym shut down and everything shut down. And we just don't prioritize our physical health. I mean, I know what happened to you that had you not prioritizing working out of the gym.
And my husband, I said to him last year, I said, I need to start working out. I'm going to start working out at the house. And he's like, uh-huh. And like a month later, he's like, how's that working out at the house going? And I'm like, it's not. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because when I get home from the office and I have time before I get Brianna, I can do the laundry, I can do the cleaning, I can get dinner started because I cook most of my dinners from scratch, so they take a little while. I can do this, I can do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, and that's why you'll never be able to work out at home, because you can always find other things that are more important to you than working out. So I'm really good at that when it comes to working out. Like I can find other things. So I have to get out of the house. So this year he actually said to me, because I was complaining about my weight, not necessarily my weight, but how my clothes fit. Because I don't weigh myself. I haven't weighed myself in years, but it's how my clothes fit that I look at that and that tells me where I'm at, right? And he's like, why don't you, when you drop Brianna off either at school or at the bus, why don't you head right over to the gym? And I'm like, yeah, but I might have 8 o'clock. He's like, okay, so you make yourself available for 8 o'clock on like Tuesday and Thursday, and Monday and Friday, you go at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 something in the morning to the gym, and then you go to work. And then on the days that you go, you make yourself available for 8 o'clock. If you don't have them, then you go to the gym. If not, you find time later in the day before you get Brianna. And I'm like, you're being way too reasonable right now, because I don't really want to be.
Stop finding solutions to my problems. I want to have problems.
I want to have a problem right now, and that's my problem, and just leave it. Stop giving me solutions. He's learned way too much from me, I'm telling you.
I will say that exact same thing can reflect on people working from home. Some people cannot work from home because there's other things that I'm supposed to be doing. I struggle with this. It comes up for me. I don't think I did any work at all yesterday. Yesterday was a Monday. I should have done work, but I did dishes, I did laundry, I took care of my recovering kiddo, and I didn't work. And so it's interesting when you're talking about, like, if I don't go to the gym, I don't work out because I don't do it at home. There's other things I can do. And so that comes up in other areas of life. So I come up with like rules for myself. I just did my silly quotey fingers. I come up with boundaries or rules for myself, and I don't feel the need to rebel against them because it's an agreement I made with myself. It's, Sarah, you're better if you live by these rules. Like, I have this silly paper over here that I made forever ago. My husband made a complaint that I was not spending any time with him, and this was probably a year ago. And this was when I was working full time and working my business. I went to an event in Florida last September, and I got to meet lovely you. He did kind of bring up, he's like, we're not spending any time together. You're either gone at work or you're working laying in bed next to me. And so I made just a couple little rules, and it's no work in the bedroom, once a month dates, out of the house, altar planning, and no food in the bed. He and I are snackers. And if we are sitting there snacking, we're not spending time together. We're not interacting with each other. We're not. And so that's kind of a silly thing, but I just thought of it as you were talking about, making yourself do the things that we need to do in the places that we need to do them. Because, what if you find yourself at the gym and then you're on your phone working?
It doesn't work. Like I leave my phone, I clock, we scan ourselves in, I put it into the locker because I don't even use
Awesome.
music. I don't use anything while I'm at the gym because I'll get distracted. And so I just
Yep.
go in, I do my cardio, and I go to each machine that I want to use that day. I do 3 sets of 10 right now, and then I leave. I don't dilly
Yep.
dally. I get what I need to get done. I feel that's enough. Okay. Today my arms were shaking. I was like, that's it. That I'm done. Done. So that's, speaking of done, the other thing that
I was just
the other thing I decided that I needed to do was mental health. So I have my counselor's appointment in a few moments. And so I am going to get off here. We're going to end this and we'll come back with I think we're doing scheduling next, right?
we are doing scheduling. We are doing scheduling.
Okay. I'm going to say goodbye, everyone. I hope this is helpful. Please reach out. There's so much more on core values and priorities that we can talk about. We could probably go on for about 2 hours on this one, but we're not. So if you need help figuring those out and help getting yourself aligned, let us know. We'd love to help you.
I'm